welcome to ReactNYC.
Whoa!
Awesome. Everyone got the Wi-Fi? Because I'm going to move the slide. Cool. So welcome to ReactNYC. I'll do it quick. This is our Twitter channel. You know what to do. We all have iPhones. You know how to hit follow. You know how to take pictures and put them on the Twitter feed, and then we'll retweet them. Hopefully I'll get new followers. Can't promise that though. Viewers, which is about 3 times more than we got last time, which means it's 300% growth. Insane. Also, all of our meetups are recorded, and Roman, who does all the work of publishing, editing, recording, puts it right there. There's really, I think it's more than 50 talks right now. A lot of cool stuff. If you have free alone evenings, and you feel lonely, and instead of Netflix, you can just go and learn something cool. We also have a really cool Slack channel for all the JavaScript-related things in New York. It's not just for ReactNYC, it's also for AngularNYC and VueNYC, TypeScript, a bunch of other things that are coming up. There are already more than 550 cool kids on the blog. You can ask questions, share experiences, find all the organizers of all the meetups there, all the front-end meetups at least. Share it with your friends. Raise your hands if you're here for the first time. Like every time, we have about 50% new people, which is great. So for all the new people, ReactNYC is a semi-monthly event. So we run these meetups every 2 weeks. And usually we have 3 to 4 speakers each time, which logically means that we need a lot of speakers. So we need people who want to talk about anything that is related to React, React Native, or the ecosystem. Even if you're experienced or inexperienced, you know what to talk about, you don't know what to talk about, come talk to us. We'll help you find the topic, we'll help you prepare the presentation, just to get you on stage so we can fill all the speaking slots. Selfish reasons. Cool. We have an announcement about really cool conferences coming up. Is Daniel here? Talk about the conference?
Eating.
Take your time. Want to talk about the conference?
Sure.
Go ahead.
And really, thank you so much for the opportunity to bring this up. So this is actually our 3rd time doing Buzz.js. Buzz.js is a JavaScript conference in the generic form of the term, meaning we will also have some back-end, not just front-end, talks there. There's a number of topics listed here. We have 13 speakers, 1 full day of talks with 2 tracks this time. We did 1 track the last 2 years. And would you believe all of that is only $50, and we feed you. So most conferences are a lot more expensive than that. So if you or your business can allow you to take that Friday, June 15th off, then I highly recommend that you attend. And if you're looking for a job, obviously it's a great place to network and meet people, just like this meetup is. I think that's about it.
Cool. And also we have at least 3 people out of this list here. See if you can find them.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, another thing is a new initiative. Thank you. Should I speak into both? Another initiative we are starting here is a new meetup called JavaScript Pro. It's for JS professionals that have at least 3 years of experience in JavaScript. So unlike ReactNYC, which is open for everyone and we welcome everyone, this meetup is exclusively for professional developers. Everyone's professional developers, professional experience with some experience in JavaScript. And the difference is that we are only going to talk about deep and advanced topics. So we're going to skip all the beginner stuff. You can go to meetup.com/js-pro, request to join, and hopefully get to one of the future events. We're still planning the first one. It's really fresh. Also, I wanted to introduce you to Manon. Give Manon a big round of applause. So Manon is joining us as Director of Community Operations. She'll be responsible for running all these cool meetups and the future meetups this year, hopefully further. So if you want to give a talk, or if you want to sponsor a meetup, if you want to host a meetup like this is the person. Or me, or any other organizers, by the way. So thanks, Manon. Now we connect with the face. As I already told you, we are a semi-monthly meetup. So these are the events that are planned in the next month, June 5th and June 25th. Stay tuned. They fill up pretty quickly, I could say. And we need speakers for July, August, September, October to get that. In December, we'll do a winter break for about a month. I wanted to say big thanks to Meredith for providing this really fancy venue, really nice food, nice beverages. First of all, big round of applause. And I want to invite Kamari to explain what Meredith do, in case you don't know what they do.
Hi, everybody. I'm also going to call my Women in Technology co-chair, Megan, up here. My name is ReactNYC, and I am a developer on our newsgroup team, which is Time, Money, Fortune, and Time for Kids magazines.
And I'm Megan Walter. I'm a developer on our e-commerce team.
And Meredith, for those of you that don't know, just this past winter acquired what was formerly known as Time Inc. So it was one gigantic magazine publisher taken over by another gigantic magazine publisher, and now they are moving into the next wave of technology for the media space. Right now, if anyone is interested in exploring new places to live, Meredith is hiring developers for Seattle, Des Moines, and the UK. So if anybody's interested, you can go to meredith.com/careers or talk to myself or Megan about possible opportunities with any of the almost 40 different magazine brands that Meredith runs. So thank you, and hope you enjoyed the talk.
And of course, about the company who are organizing the event, we are 500 Tech. We help companies build cool front end with React, React Native. If you need help, you need consulting, we can come on site, sit together with your team, solve your problems, hopefully. Not the personal problems, just with React or React Native. So if you need any help, come talk to me. And obviously, big thanks to you, and give yourself a big round of applause. You really deserve it. Because you are the people who are actually driving the meetup. Without you, there's no meetup. Even with the speakers, they could come and talk just to me. So thanks so much for coming. Thanks so much for sharing the meetups with your friends. We already have 4,300 members, which is really cool. And without further ado, let's enjoy the meetup and invite Shawn for his first talk. Not his first talk, the first talk of the meetup.
Okay, great. So hi everybody, and thanks so much to Meredith for hosting this amazing venue. Like, you know, I'm so impressed by this. My name is Shawn, and I'm here to talk about Create React App. But first, I really want to start off with Amazon and Jeff Bezos, your friendly neighborhood independent bookseller. No, obviously, I'm talking about Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world. And it's something that's core to his beliefs when he's running Amazon that he says, and I'm just going to read it out. This is probably a bad practice, don't do this, but he believes in it so strongly that I have to read it. It's impossible to imagine a future 10 years from now where a customer says, Jeff, I love Amazon. I just wish the prices were a little higher. It's impossible, right? So we know that the energy we put into Amazon today will still be paying off dividends for our customers when something that you know is true, you can afford to put a lot of energy into it. And that's his assertion that customer experience can never be good enough. And my assertion is developer experience can never be good enough. If you take one thing away from this talk, it's that developer experience, DX, can never be good enough. what's that got to do with Create React App? All right, let's actually get into it. I want to bring you back in time, and for those who are newer to React, I want to tell you about how it was before Create React App. So first, I'm going to do a show of hands. So who in the audience has manually set up Webpack, Babel, and React? All right, about 70%. All right. Who has cloned someone else's boilerplate? All right. About 50%. And who has used Create React App? Okay. Actually, there's some hands that are not up, so I'll say like 90%. And who would use Create React App for their first project, like just when you're starting out a new project? All right. So yeah, like okay, about 80% returners. And I used to believe in the boilerplate myself. So much so that my first project was called package.json. This is the flow on the left where you can see how it works. Basically, you type in the dependencies that you want, and it would filter out from a whole list of boilerplates the exact boilerplate for you. And you would copy them and all that. I believed in it so much I gave it a name. This is actually package.json. He's a package delivery man. And his goal is to find the perfect boilerplate to give to package Jane, his love interest. But really, and one thing I was innovating, which all that was thrown away. But I think the one good idea from this project, which persists, is the idea of cognitive load. And there is a ton of cognitive load that happens when you start a new project. There's dependencies, there's dev dependencies, there's peer dependencies, folder structure, config files, and then there's a whole question of, is this still maintained? Like, can I trust this thing, or do I have to keep it up to date? And that's not even an exhaustive list, right? I'm sure you can think of more. And that ties into a broader question of how it feels to learn JavaScript. If you've seen this viral essay, How It Feels to Learn JavaScript in 2016, he guides this JavaScript newbie through Vue, through React, TypeScript, Babel, Flow, NPM. It's actually kind of fun going through all those logos and seeing how many you can name. And this phenomenon has a name. It's called JavaScript fatigue, and people were really feeling it for React. Down here, this is one of the sort of core people in the React community saying too many newbies are getting overwhelmed by React's learning curve. Why? A lot of it has nothing to do with React. It even became a meme. People were tweeting out things like this. This is impossible to imagine in today's world. And people are retweeting it because there's some element of truth, right? Like there's always a little bit of truth in everything, and it hurts. So literally, people can put up their boilerplates, and it would get upvoted to the front of Hacker News and make entire careers. This is Max Stoiber's boilerplate called React Boilerplate. We're not known for our creative names, as you will see later. And literally encouraging boilerplate to the point where this is the package.json boilerplate. When you're scrolling through and you're importing this boilerplate, it's 300 lines. I have no idea what it does. It probably takes you as long to learn how to set this up as setting it up yourself, And a lot of it you're not going to need. So that's probably not the solution, but people are still doubling down on this. When React Boilerplate was put up on Hacker News, the first suggestion was, hey, there should be a boilerplate of the month. You think this is a joke. It's not a joke. This is how people seriously were like, yeah, things are moving so quickly. Whatever I used last month is out of date. So that's too much cognitive load to the point where it gave the impression that React was tied to all this stuff. This is someone on Twitter trying to set up a simple React app, but then he thinks he needs to figure out generator functions, Redux Saga, Webpack, and CSS modules. So that doesn't sound like a simple React app, but it's tied so much in the ecosystem to it that people thought it was the same thing. On the other side of the spectrum, the React docs, all they gave you was a starter pack. You don't see this on the docs now, but this is how it was back then. It was a big button, and it gave you, guess what, a zip file. You download the zip file, and guess what? More config, you actually have to create a hello world.html on it. It's not even complete. And there's a huge opportunity. So wherever there's opportunity, the React community will come in. And these are all the attempts at solving it in slightly different ways. There's NWB, there's RWB for React, there's Rack CLI, there's Budo, there's Prot, and then there's Enclave. We'll come back to Enclave in a second. So this problem is very much not solved. Here's another person trying to start React and joking like he's downloaded a Fortran starter pack. I don't know Fortran. It sounds like I don't want to know it. But the point is, boilerplates are ridiculous and have little to do with React. So how do you solve a problem like boilerplate? Here's Danny Abramov thinking and thinking and thinking. And obviously, the obvious solution to solving a React problem is to go to Ember Camp. What? Yeah, he went to Ember Camp and he stole an idea for Ember. Ember CLI is really cool, he says. No config, React community could learn from this. Ember devs are like, yeah, duh, like we've had this, like what's up? Like why are we, why is React more popular than us? Whatever. Ember CLI had a good idea. We saw that he had a good idea. We took it and we combined it with some ideas from Enclave, and that's that's what Dan Abramov did. Create React app was actually, most of it was written in a day. We had him working MVP, and a week later they published it. This is the blog post announcing it in July 2016, so not that long ago. But maybe the history is kind of lost on us, right? Here's the Hacker News announcement, and here's Facebook Live. They tried to actually do demos and launch things on Facebook Live. Remember when Facebook Live was a thing? No? Actually, remember when Facebook was a thing? Yeah, that was, historically, we used that. So typically, this is a terrible formula for success, right? Like, there are 14 competing boilerplates. This is ridiculous. We need one boilerplate that covers everyone's issues. And the result is there's 15 boilerplates. But actually, what happened was it worked. And there's something strange in there. So this is the chart of GitHub stars of all the other boilerplates. And then obviously the red line is create React app. I'm just going to say CRA from now on, by the way. CRA. So 11,000 stars in the first 3 months, and now it stands at 80,000 stars. So what happened? First of all, I want to make the point again that developer experience cannot be good enough. So we want to talk a little bit about how it works and dive into the code. Obviously, you read the docs, but the funny thing about docs for big projects is they always tell you how to use it. They don't really tell you how it works. And if you look into the README, you get this little paragraph about how each of the packages in Create React app work, and that's about it, and it's actually out of date. So obviously, you read the source code, right? It's so obvious. Even, I'm blanking on his name. Stevie Wonder can, I'm so sorry. I knew it when I put it in. Anyway, Stevie Wonder can put it in. But here, I've annotated the core parts of the packages that you want to pay attention to. First one is the one that gave it the name, Create React App. That's a one-time CLI, command line install. You only install that one time, and you never touch it again, because it's hard to remind people to update their command line instances globally. And then the main meat of the package is React scripts, which has a bunch of scripts. It routes different scripts for initializing, starting, building, ejecting, and testing. There's the template, which is copied out, which is the stuff that you work with and make into your own app. And there's a Webpack config that Facebook maintains for you so that you don't have to deal with Webpack. And there's also other niceties like Babel preset React app, which is all the Babel configs that you don't have to worry about. And there's that JSX overlay that you like, which shows up in a nice way, in a nice little white screen. So let's talk about the installation. What actually happens is actually not that much. So we'll talk about the critical path for the CLI, the command line interface. When you type in npm install g, create React app, what actually happens is it just your node instance runs task cra.js, which basically copies over packages create React app, and you're done. So now you have access to this command line command called create React app. Then when you're initializing a new project, you just type create React app, whatever app name you have. It goes into command line create React app, which calls React scripts, and bin/reactscripts.js is a router. It routes all the different scripts. So there's init, there's build, there's whatever. But here we're initializing, and the initializing script basically goes into template and copies out everything in the template, and then runs yarn install on it. That's it. That's Create React App. And React scripts is the workhorse of Create React App, right? It has all these other scripts, and basically all you do is you feed in flags to this command line, to this npm package, and it will run the associated commands for you. For example, here's what happens when you run npm start. It routes to bin React scripts again. It goes to which gets routed to script/start.js. It runs your app through webpack.config.dev.js. So that's the dev config of Webpack. Similarly, for building, you run npm run build, and it forwards it all the way to run the prod version of Webpack config. So all that is maintained for you by Facebook. So that's a very nice field. If this was another venue, we would walk through the code, but I don't have time for that today. I encourage you to, though. Here are 5 things I want to highlight for you, though. So here is the top part. This is the code for copying out the template in the init folder that we just walked through. And this is where they actually put in an error for if the template doesn't exist. Now, this actually doesn't make sense because the template actually is shipped together with React scripts. So you probably are never going to have an instance where there's a React script, but there's no template. But they put it in anyway, and that's the nice attention to detail for all the edge cases that might happen if things get corrupted or stuff gets changed around later on. Over here is that little nice warning. If you run an app in port 3000, this is too small for you to read. I'm just going to speak it out for you. If you run an app in port 3000 and you run another Create React app in the same port, it's going to tell you, hey, you're running an app here. Would you like to run it on a different port? That's, again, nice developer experience. You didn't have to code any of that. Here is the eject function, where you can actually mark code as dead code, which you want to remove when you eject or build things. Here's the React error overlay, which you already know because it pops up and shows you, the issues in the JSX, which are not the compiled versions of it. And here is Babel preset React app, which are all the Babel plugins, in particular the class properties and object rest spread, which are only in the proposal stage in TC39. But you get to use them as standard React defaults already. So again, DX can never be good enough. There are all these little tweaks that they're doing for you, and it's such a nice bundled experience. Now we talk about how it's managed. That's the last thing, and this is the easiest part to explain. There are so many packages. There are so many packages, and typically they'd be uploaded to separate repos, and you just manage each of them independently, and you push them to npm. But as a developer of a package of a library of multiple packages, it's hard to npm link them together when you're developing, and then make sure that the version numbers sync up when you actually push them. So what Lerna does is ask you to embrace the monolith and actually just publish everything in a giant monorepo. That's what Facebook is: 30,000 React components all in one repo on Facebook, and it works for them. It probably will work for you. Basically, if you use Lerna, well, here's what you do. You run Lerna publish. You select whether you want to bump the major, patch, or minor versions, and then it publishes everything, all the packages that need to be updated with the correct version number. That's about it. And it's really that small API that makes it such a pleasure to use. Basically, if you're using Lerna, you're basically SpaceX and landing different rockets separate at the same time. Again, a reminder that DX can never be good enough. That this is a tool for creating tools. So the last thing I wanted to try to do was copy it. So I think the best way to learn something is to try and clone it. And that's what I tried to do. So thinking about Create React app, it's not perfect, right? What could be better? When I eject, I get this big, scary, I first get this question, like, are you sure you want to eject? Well, I don't know, maybe not. But it shouldn't be such a big, life or death decision. I shouldn't be saddled with a whole bunch of dependencies out here when I eject from Create React app. And when I install, this is Ryan Florence, creator of React Router, telling you to actually, there's a nice hack because it takes so long to install Create React app that you can actually install you can pre-install Create React app into a folder and then just copy the folder every single time. It was faster that way, and that's obviously not ideal. So around the same time this happened, Parcel came out. Parcel is a competitor to Webpack in that it's a faster bundler, and there's a bunch of other nice things. The main features are Parcel does multi-core processing, so it processes faster because it makes use of your multiple cores, whereas Webpack is single-threaded. And it's also zero config out of the box, whereas Webpack often has like 500 lines of configuration. According to Parcel's own metrics, they are up to 10 times faster than Webpack. So I was like, OK. And I noticed that Create React app is so tied to Webpack, right? Like that's part of the whole thing. When you eject, you're tied to Webpack. When you run things, you're tied to Webpack. And this thing on the right is that critical stage. So I need to make my own version of React scripts if I want to use React with Parcel. So how hard could it be? Literally a piece of cake. So just revisit the critical path. So what I did was I did lerna init. I made my own version of task.cra.js. I made my own version of Create React app, the command line utility. Then I made my own version of React scripts with init, template, start, and my own version of Webpack. And then I hit learn and publish. This is my commit log from that day. It took about 6 hours. I'm not saying I'm amazing at it. I'm just saying this is that easy to do. And you can always see it on the GitHub if you want to follow along. I think it's a really good exercise to understand the tools that you're using. And rip and replace. It's not that hard. I just commented out all the Webpack bits. and put in all the new parcel hotness, is what I call it. And I do understand there's a certain bit of irony here because I'm configuring something that's supposed to be zero config. And that's mostly, and the parcel guys know that, that's mostly to do with configuring the production settings that you want. So I did that for people who use Create React App Parcel. And I announced it on Twitter. It got posted to Hacker News. Fun fact about getting to the front page, the top of Hacker News, there's a lot of bots these are all bots. They just post the title, like I don't know what's in it for them, but they have titles with all the exact same things. Yeah, it's just weird. And obviously because of the initials of Create React App Parcel, I gave it the poop emoji. It's very friendly, it's very cute. Here's a demo of how you do it. You just run crap, and for example, I called it crap shoot. That's just fun. Like I think, I'm not saying that people should use this. I'm just saying that people should go through the exercise of building cloning your favorite tool, and seeing how it works, and just completely understanding it. Because if you can build it, you know it. So here's an example of me going into the source code, starting it up. I hate live coding, so I pre-record everything. It's generally a good idea. And there's the running Create React App Parcel. This is the new background for CRA version 2, by the way, so you're going to be getting this as well. And then here's an example of the dev build, of the build process, and it's done. So the build is very fast as well, and that just purely comes out of Parcel. And that's the demo. Again, DX can never be good enough. It's a sliding improvement. I don't expect anyone to use it, but it was a really good exercise, and people really welcome that. So what can we really learn from all this, right? Like I just got you through a whole history of stuff. Like, do you really need to know that? I think the thing that you take away is that there are two types of attitudes when it comes to dev tools. One is, this is more free software. Who wants that? Eternal cycle developer tool BS. And then there's the other reaction, which is, here when I announced Create React App Parcel on my Twitter, here's the current maintainer of Create React App coming to my mentions and saying, hey, we're tied to Webpack right now, but we would look at Parcel if it improves things. Like, they are that positive. You can either say things are perfect, they'll never change, and don't change them, please, or like, let's talk about improving things for people. And just a reminder, here are all the reactions for when Create React App first came out. Over here is Rachel Smith. She's the top. She's the front-end lead at CodePen. There's Wes Boss. There's this guy who's talking about the error message that we talked about, where if you run the same thing on the same port, it gives you the option to run on a different port instead of a weird error message. There's just all of this love for developer tools on the other side. And I think there's a general spectrum, and I was trying to chart it out in my graph, and I think it can be explained by this chart, which is charting developer experience versus a developer's experience. If you think about it, there's two meanings of that. So when you start out and you have no experience, you want more developer experience. And then when you get a little more experience and you know all your tools, you're like, all right, don't change anything because everything's perfect the way it is. You have zero desire for more developer experience. But then as you start building other stuff and having other concerns, you want that more developer experience again. And then when you start teaching, you really, really want developer experience. So if that chart looks familiar, it's very related to the Dunning-Kruger effect. Is the conclusion create React App? Maybe you shouldn't make a CLI to make CLIs? No, I'm not telling you to make CLIs. I'm just saying this is part of a spectrum that never ends. Where Create React App lies is probably a constant combination of generator and toolkit. And there's so much other things that we can start to think about to improve Create React App. So to improve experience. So this is the homework I leave to you guys. If you want to check out my projects, npm.im Create React App Parcel. Sunil Pai in React Europe gave a really good talk about how we should all write less code and make things to write less code. Kent Dodds wrote a really good blog post about how toolkits are very similar to public transportation, and configure all the things is like owning your own car versus having a bus. And Danny Abramov, obviously, for giving the initial inspiration. So thank you. These slides are here, and that's my Twitter. Thank you.
Thanks, Shawn. I have only 30 listeners. We have 2 questions.
So I guess the first thing I want to know, did you also do an inject so that you can expose all the stuff? Yeah, sounds great.
first thing the person caught was I didn't copy out one of the files that was needed for my eject. So I didn't test it fully enough, but people are testing it, and it helped to fix something in Parcel, which was bothering people for a long time. So and that's something that the creators of Create React have found as well. They were helping to, because of the popularity of the project, they had some clout as to fixing downstream dependency issues by showing that people wanted them.
One more question.
Cool, go make DevTools.
Yeah.
All right.
Is it?
We just get a testing. Just
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm testing what I'm talking about. Should I be saying something else? Oh, I hear it. Okay, cool. All right, well, I'm Vikas, and I don't know how to use my own computer. Shawn, what did you do? Oh, okay. All right, let's get out of my emails. I got it. I like Breaking Bad. That's why that picture's there. First of all, that was such a cool presentation, Shawn. There's this podcast I love called Internet History Podcast. I think it's by a guy named Brian McCullough, and the first half reminded me of that, and it was just really cool. So my talk today is called Cache is King. It does have a few puns in there, so if you're one of those people who can't take puns, I'm sorry you live such a sad existence. It's a practical introduction to service workers in React, so I hope I kept it high level enough. I'm trying to make it pretty actionable, so I hope I found a good balance. So once again, Vikas Srivastava is my name. I'm a second career dev. I worked in business development back in Arizona, and then transitioned into being a developer by going to Full Stack Academy, which a few of us have been to as well. This Monday, I started at XO Group. It's a fantastic place. One thing I want to mention is that we are hiring. I'm not the only one. This is what's on the website. I put Austin in the corner because you don't want to go there. You want to stay here and work with me. And but I confirm that it's not just these roles. We're hiring at all levels of experience, React and Node on the back end, or React Rails. Okay, cool. So my actual talk. So most of what we build has a huge flaw in it. What do you think I'm going to say next? What is the flaw? Yes, needs internet. They don't work when you're offline. And I hate that because I moved to New York City less than a year ago, and I constantly am losing internet access. So I'm on the subway for an hour a day, and I open up some article on Medium or something that I want to read, and then suddenly I'm down in the A, and I open it up again, and it refreshes, and it's gone. It's like, all right, okay, I hate that. Then I'm in Trader Joe's, and my partner and I share our grocery list, and I open it up in the bottom floor of Trader Joe's on 72nd Street, and then it refreshes, and I lose it. So then I had to call her, and I don't have service, so that doesn't even go through, and it's a mess. Okay, so that's my first world problems, but there are actually more worldly reasons to care about this stuff too. So back when I lived in Arizona, I used to work with a lot of kids in West Phoenix. A lot of them, they might have a pretty nice phone, but their families couldn't afford really expensive data plans, didn't have Wi-Fi at home, so they could only access the internet if they were at school or some free Wi-Fi somewhere. So they would hang out at the Walmart parking lot and use the Wi-Fi from the Starbucks that was inside. A lot of places, even in the US, there are a lot of examples that are given about emerging markets and developing countries making use of offline access, but there are a lot of places, even in the US, where people don't have access to consistent network access. So this is a picture of the Navajo Reservation back in Arizona as well. We have a solution, and that is not these kinds of service workers. Not that guy. Service workers. So service workers, this was copied from Create React App. I actually put that in once I knew what Shawn was talking about today, which I will come back to later. OK, what's a service worker? So a service worker sits between your app and the network. So you'll see there's the browser tabs on one side, network on the other side. Service worker is kind of like, I just heard an analogy on a podcast. It's like if you're on planet Earth and you're trying to talk to the moon people, service workers are your UFO that like intercepts all your communication between and can change it. So normally your tabs communicate with the network and back and forth. When you have a service worker, it sits in between. So your tabs communicate with the service worker. So service worker then communicates with the network. If your network is down, then your tabs still communicate with the service worker and back. So that's what gives you offline access. If you exit out of your tabs too, it works the other way, so that you can have background processes that communicate with the network. So it's really useful for a lot of functionality. It also gives you access to cold hard cache, your cache using the cache storage API. One thing I just want to throw in there, I wasn't sure where to put this. People, I think, get very confused about the difference between progressive web apps and service workers. Think about it like squares and rectangles. Progressive web apps are squares, service workers are rectangles, or even like quadrilaterals maybe. Because service workers you can use almost anywhere. In almost any web app, it will add functionality. Progressive web apps are like a whole set of standards that are great. I love them, but you don't need to venture down that path if you want to add some cool stuff to your app. So whey protein, it gives you power and whey complex. Service workers are powerful and complex. Let's get started on some of the easier stuff. So I tried to break it down, tried to make it a little simpler to take into account. So first, you had to check whether the browser that the client is using even has access to a service worker. So that's why you have if service worker in Navigator. Then you register it. So you got to create it in the first place. It's called registering. Easy peasy. OK. Now we're going to go over some common patterns. Once again, don't stress too much about the detail here. This is about concepts, because we're going to bring up something later. And I put it in a meme. OK, so first, the not cool version of building web apps is just network only. It doesn't work if you have offline access. Then you do cache. Then you have a cache falling back to your network. Then you have cache falling back to your network with frequent updates. And then also kind of on the same third and fourth levels, you have the network falling back to cache, which mirrors cache falling back to network. And then same thing for the frequent updates. OK, so this is just an example of you don't really care about offline functionality, so you just have network only. These are things you never want to cache, like network pings. I'm not really sure why you would do this. I've never done this, but self is just the global scope of the service worker. You add an event listener for a fetch, and you fetch whatever you want from your API. Okay. Normally, you're going to do this elsewhere in your app, but you could do it in service worker if you want. Now you have a cache. So this is if you just pull stuff from your cache, it's not going to update. So as long as the lifetime is of your app, it's going to stay that way. So same thing. There's only one line that changed. So when you load the event listener matches against your cache, and then it returns that. OK, now you have cache falling back to network. This is if you want fast updates. The issue is that it won't show the update until the second time you visit the page. So you'll visit the page, and you'll see old stuff, and then the second time you go, you'll see even though there was an update, then you'll see the update. That's the code there. It adds a little if statement. OK, network falling back to cache, very similar. It loads from the network first, then offline from the cache. Doesn't optimize load times. Good example here is the latest weather. So you want to have the latest weather update if you have a weather app, but if you're offline, you just want to know what the most recent forecast was, even if it was yesterday. So you just load that. And that's just kind of the reverse. Once again, I'm skipping over a lot of the code because I'm going to show you something later that makes this easier. OK, so now we get to the brain exploding, ethereal experiences part. So this is cache. So when you load the page, it first tries to load from cache. Then it falls back to your network if it doesn't have a cache. So that means it's like your first visit. You've never cached anything before. Then once that loads, it makes a call to update the data again. So I think that's basically what I said. It updates cache in the background. This is like event listings. So think of like Meetup. I'm not sure if Meetup uses this, but a lot like Meetup. There's a lot of new events. So you really want to have the latest info. Worst case scenario. But you also want to load really fast because people, I don't know, get bored and maybe don't want to go to a Meetup. If it takes too long to load, maybe they go to Eventbrite. And so as it loads the first instance of listings, then it updates in the background. OK, so look at this. I mean, already we're starting to get to a lot of code. I had to make it like size 14 font. On these big screens, it's OK, but this is really annoying to write out. So, and then there's the opposite. Network first, then cache. OK, lots of boilerplate. So yeah, yikes. Service workers have a lot of boilerplate. So that might be why some people don't like them. Like the Create React App community. So these are some big events, conversations that have gone on in Create React App. So the first one you see, PWAification, was the first kind of pull request that added service workers to Create React App. Then there was why was service worker merged in, was basically a big conversation of people complaining about how difficult it was and how many problems it caused. Then we merged in a new pull request, disabling the service worker by default. But there's a new thing. What is that? Workbox. That is now an open pull request that might be added in pretty soon. There has to be a better way. Maybe it has something to do with that word. Workbox, yeah, exciting. JavaScript libraries for adding offline support for web apps. So remember that cache falling back to network with frequent updates? That was the code. This is it now. So Workbox is a library that Google made available. It's an update to whatever libraries that Create React App uses currently. It's a lot better. And they have a strategy. And so they call it stale while revalidate. So that's because cache falling back to network with frequent updates is kind of annoying. Cool. So let's see some concrete examples. So this is what I think you should focus on in terms of code. I chose 3 examples that they have on there that are like super frequent needs that you might come across. So this might be a good place to just start with a service worker. You don't have to do it for your whole app, but it creates some benefits right now. Sorry if you don't like curse words. Speed up your initial load times by pre-caching Google Fonts. This is BoJack Horseman, another good show. So with this one, let's walk through this. So Workbox is initialized. It has a kind of section called routing. You register your route. So this is the routes this regular expressions for Google Fonts. So this is any sort of URL that has Google Fonts associated with it. And you cache first, so it's called pre-caching. So before your page loads, it caches it immediately. It saves it as Google APIs. And then this plugin right here isn't necessary, but it's added so that you don't save like 500 million fonts onto your users' browsers, because you care about your users. And so you max it out at 30. Another example. We're going to speed up our initial load times by pre-caching our images. That's a cache image. Yeah, sorry guys. This is my humor. This is why I don't have many friends. OK, so what you do is you first register your route. And what we're doing here is we are checking for file types. So anything that's an image, we cache it first. We put it in a cache called images. And then we have the same plugin again. So expiration, we max it out at 60 images. And then 30 days is how long we want to keep them. Our users probably don't want to have like our hero image on their computer for 7 years. So cool. And then this one's cool. and another good piece of media, Forrest Gump. We're going to speed up our subsequent visits. So on the first load, it's not going to be fantastic, but the second visit, it's going to make your page load super quick by caching your CSS and JavaScript. So this is, once again, the stale while revalidate. This is a really clutch pattern. So it looks for all your JavaScript and CSS, and it adds to your static resources cache is what they call it. So, kind of another thing, because a lot of us work with Webpack, this is too complicated for this talk, but Workbox Webpack plugin is pretty cool. There's some boilerplates that are not super popular, but are on GitHub that I link to in my service worker resources Git repo. You'll see at the end that might be that you might just want to look through, kind of like Shawn. Okay, so let's recap. What did we learn? One, offline's a big deal. One, so you can make my life easier when I'm on the subway or shopping at Trader Joe's, but also for people who have accessibility is a major issue. Two, service workers make your apps simpler for the user, robust and fast. And three, Workbox makes it so easy you have no excuse. Don't give me excuses, people. Okay, and then this is a quote I just really liked. One book I read while preparing for this talk, I absolutely adored, so I wanted to take a quote from it. If you are interested in this stuff, especially progressive web apps, I thought it was awesome. So anyway, offline and low connectivity conditions are inevitable, but we always treat it like it's some catastrophic failure and allow Google to have the little dinosaur show up. But we need to think about it as just another state in our app's lifecycle. It's just another thing that we should prepare our users to be in the position of having, and we should handle that state gracefully. So next time you see this, say service workers, service workers, service workers, okay? All right. So thanks. You can find me on Twitter at Vikas, my first name. So my repo is private as of right now. I'm going to make it public tonight or tomorrow. And then these are some resources I found particularly cool. You'll see the links in my repo, though. So yeah, that's that.
All right, so we'll have 2 questions. Thank you for a great talk, by the way.
Thanks.
Catching humor, absolutely. So I have a question about, let's say we have some sort of API in our React application, so we need to talk to our database or third-party API. How it works in this case? I mean, when we make a call
So, I'll show you a question. You've got something like 20 seconds to answer it. Let's see. Do you know React?
The music.
Where's the music? Yeah. It's too loud. Don't look into the cat eyes. Alright, so we've got some answer 30. Oh, well, alright, we've got 9 experts. Experts, please raise your hand. Let's move forward. Are you looking for a job? Be honest. Maybe you'll get a job today. Maybe you don't. You never know. Impressive. All right. So we've got 25, more than 25 job seekers. Who's hiring? Who's here in hiring? All right. Look at them. All right. Those are the people who are hiring. So it might be your lucky day. Yeah. That's fine. It says 2. All right. CSS and JS. What do you think about it? What do you think about dancing without your shirt? What do you think about modern dancing in general? How many vegans? So we've got 18 vegans. We've got nothing to do with CSS and JS. Which is important. I'm a front-end developer because it's okay to make friends. If you don't have any social life, Meetup is a great place to meet. I actually met my ex-girlfriend. She's in jail now. Alright, so, yeah. I met your ex-girlfriend too. Yeah? Behind the bar? Everyone met her. In a good way. Come on. She's a public speaker. That's the truth. Let me tell you the truth. Such a YouTuber, I'm not kidding. She's a great public speaker. Just for the money. Come on. Just for the money, I like it. Make my mother proud of me. How much do you pay for a meetup? Would you pay for a meetup? Would you pay? Would you grow your own vegetables? Would you find a job in Utah? What do you think about homemade wine? What am I talking about? We've got some Angular lovers. Angular lovers, please raise your hand. just 2. That's a friendly community right here. You're safe. Alright. Which new React features do you actually use? It's a serious question. That's the reason I said why. Alright. The new context API. Oh, well, that's my...
It's not a replacement for Redux.
Yeah, it's not a replacement for Redux. But a lot of you using it. Who's not using the new context API? Who doesn't know what is the new context API? Alright. Great. Alright, last one. Why do you come to ReactNYC? Yeah, be honest. It's important for us to know, to get better. How many people are here today for the food? Just 13. Alright, Good, learn stuff, most of you. Nice, all right, let's see who wants. How can I see the scores? Where are the scores?
There's no score.
There's no scores.
No prize today.
So who won?
No one.
Who wants a t-shirt?
I'll take it.
All right. Right now we want to take it later. Catch me later. That's a correct?
Yep.
That's a new t-shirt. I just once.
Anyone? All right. Cool. So whoever's the prize near will be there.
I will give my t-shirt outside.
And let me put my screen here, and we're gonna have a 10-minute break. And I'm gonna put a timer. So in 10 minutes, we're gonna all be here for the next talk, and then for the surprise talk. Go mingle. Okay, huge round of applause.
Hey, how's everyone doing? My name is Gleb. It's a small company, but still is a good company. And I'm going to talk about painless testing for React apps specifically. And I'm going to move around, so I'm always out of frame in a live stream. I had quite a journey. I went from like C++ and computer graphics and computer vision and laser scanners and 3D modeling to data visualization and then JavaScript somehow through CaffeScript. And now I've done pretty much every framework, and I work in anything that touches JavaScript and doesn't touch CSS. Yes. I worked for a couple companies, including Kensho, which used to be on 48th floor of that little building. So I used to come down to New York quite a lot. But now I work for Cypress. Cypress is a small company based in Atlanta, but everyone's pretty much remote. I work from Boston, so not far from here. Really fast and easy, reliable testing for anything that runs in the browser. That means we are framework agnostic. So what I'm about to show you doesn't care about which framework you're using. I will show some React-specific bits at the end, but you don't have to use it. You can use Cypress with any website. And important things first, I have a couple of Cypress t-shirts right here. I don't have a t-shirt for everyone. So when you rush, I'm going to step out of the way. That's why there. The only thing, if you want to get a t-shirt, you have to promise me that you're going to use Cypress. I'm going to hunt you if you don't. Testing pyramid, right? The shape of a pyramid with unit test at the bottom, integration test, and end-to-end test at the top. The shape of a pyramid is so wide, right? The base of a pyramid is so wide just because we have tools that are really good at writing unit tests, right? You throw jest, boom, you have a unit test right there, 10 seconds. We don't have very good tools for E2E testing, right? We have Selenium, and it should not even be called a tool. It's more like a torture device. So we're testing smallest pieces really, really well. We test a lot. Except, you test it really well. What does it tell you? Nothing. Kenzie loves this video. Okay, now let's try putting things together. We wrote our little components, our little functions, our little services, and now we're trying to integrate things. We're trying to integrate my component with a team's component. We're trying to integrate our website with your API, and so on. Maybe we stop some things. Now we're writing integration things. And people say, okay, you should actually integrate and write most of your tests at the integration level. Maybe, I don't know. But it's really useful compared to unit tests, because the unit test can pass with flying colors. Right? And the thing doesn't work. Okay, website. API, end-to-end. This is what matters. Because that's what your company actually sells to the users. If a user cannot go to Amazon.com, find an item, put it in a cart, check out, pay money, you're not getting paid. Right? My wife today was on the phone with Nordstrom saying, I found a t-shirt I really, really wanted on sale. I'm clicking, I'm adding it to the cart, I'm going to pay for it, and there's 0 items in the cart. So she actually called them on the phone to complain. And they're like, oh, you have to go to the store. So the importance should be really like that. The end-to-end things are the most important things. They're really important to your users. And unit tests are really important to you, so you still should write them. If you don't believe me, open DevTools and start crying. Even the good websites have a bunch of errors. Show me any website and I'll show how badly it behaves. Unfortunately, I didn't come up with this quote. Will Klein from Denver came up with this quote, don't let your users test your app. Right? So he's a smart guy. So, alternative. Now let's talk about good things. Cypress. You install Cypress just like you could install any dev dependency. Like you install Jest. You just do npm install -d and you save it as dependency. It's Electron built app, so it actually downloads a binary appropriate for your operating system. You don't have to think about it. You just cache your node modules, so you don't have to do it over and over. It's open source. Everything is open source. You can fix bugs, you can contribute new features, and our users are contributing new features. And we work on this open source MIT license thing full time. Now, Just because it's on GitHub doesn't mean that anyone can just steal it, because being smart asses, we wrote majority of it in CoffeeScript. That's a natural, protection from. Anyway, at least watch Introduction to Cypress to get an idea. But here I'll just show it. Typical test looks a lot like Mocha BDD. You have your it, kind of names the test. You have everything chained over Sci object. It's a global object that has all the API that you use. So the main command, Sci visit, and then the URL. This actually is a full task. Just opening a URL in a real browser, so you'll see it's actually a real browser. It's not just DOM emulation. None of us like kids crap. This is real browser. Just the fact that it opens loads of websites, make sure that it responds with content HTML, that onload event fires. It's already a huge task, and you can see it, and you will see it. But then let's do something else. Let's say we'll get something with a selector, so you can use any CSS selectors, and then you run an assertion. Should be visible. It's kind of weird syntax, but it's Chai syntax. We bundle Chai, Chai jQuery, Synon Chai, and you can add whatever library you want for assertions. And so getting an element, asserting that it's visible. More complex test. So we, again, visiting a website. We getting an element with a class new to do. We type some text and enter. We type some more text and enter. Then we get the list of to-do items, and we expect the list of items to have length 2, right? We're not talking about unit test, where a best practice is kind of like do one test and do a single assertion. We don't care about that. We want to use our app the same way we would, like a user would do. The user would not go to your website, open, click one button, and then disappear, right? The user would go to your website, do a bunch of user actions, right? So you want to test the whole thing. And you will see why this is good, because as opposed to in unit tests, you're not, anyway, let's just show like a demo, right? Enough talk. So I have my test, and I do have my, to-do kind of app, right? So I can add, I can delete items, not like running locally. It could be running anywhere. So first test that I want to do is just open the page. By the way, so we ship TypeScript definitions. So when you hover in this code, you get full IntelliSense on everything, including like all the assertions. So you don't have to really remember anything. You can just keep typing and provide important things. So npx Cypress open. Am I in the right thing? Yeah, I am. So there are only 2 commands. Cypress open, that's what opens this interactive mode that shows list of spec files. And if I click on that, this actually opens Electron browser. You can open any Chromium-based browsers. Firefox support is coming, real soon. So what you see in this little iframe on the right is the actual website. That's my local host 3000. But the important thing is on the left. This is actually showing me all the test commands. So if I hover, I see the visit. I see that my app did XHR request, and then I have get selector, and then an assertion. And as I hover, it actually highlights the element, in iframe that I selected, right? In this case, new to do. I can pop DevTools because I live and die by DevTools. So if I click on something, I will get more information in a DevTools. And let me actually make this larger a little bit. I'm actually getting the actual element I'm working with. So that's nice, right? That's a simple test. Instead of, let's go to the one that adds 2 to-dos. Notice Cypress is watching my spec files, so it's running everything automatically. I can literally have Cypress open on one screen, have my code on another, and as I keep modifying things, I'm rerunning all the tests and so on. So it's test-driven end-to-end test development. Okay, so longer test. It loaded the page, grabbed the input box, added first to do, added second to do. Now watch the magic. So I'm hovering over visit. So that's, look at the iframe. So that's how it looked. I grab new to do, and I type learn testing and enter. Do you see how it actually shows you a little animation before and after? So at every step, if Cypress observes that you're modifying the DOM, standby mic? Who's Mike? That's a stupid joke. You set me up on a pun, path to hell. Okay. Cypress runs Electron app. It runs your website in an iframe, and it can observe directly what's going on. It's none of a Selenium crap, where it's like HTTP sending JSON commands into the black ether and then expecting something to happen. This thing actually knows what's going on immediately. So when it observes that the DOM has been modified, it knows, hey, there is before and after. So I can pause this. This is how my DOM looked before, and this is how my DOM looked after each command, right? So the DOM snapshot is built in. Okay, then I see that my app actually did a call to the server to save to-dos. And then I typed the second thing, be cool, and press enter. Again, before and after. And then I grabbed the list of to-dos, and it highlights the elements that it found, and it expected this list to have length of 2, the assertion passed. If I clicked on this and I open DevTools, I can actually see the array of elements that I grabbed. This time-traveling debugger is why we encourage you to actually write the whole scenario. Don't actually set up tiny tasks with a single assertion. No, write everything you want to do, and if something goes wrong, you can just go back and see how everything works. So let me actually reload this test. Ooh, there's a problem, right? It failed. Right? So the first time you see Cypress and you write a test that fails, it will be the best day of your life. And it's hard to imagine why. But once you look at the UI and you see that this is the step that failed, this is how many elements it matched. So it expected it to have to length 2, but really it was 4. I don't have to guess what happened. There is no more like shooting in the blind, like Selenium, Nightwatch, Casper, all these tools do, right? Just saying something failed and like crap message. I can understand exactly what's going on. Even better, so let me just exit this really quickly. Here's what you would do on your CI. Cypress run. So instead of Cypress open, which is interactive mode, you do Cypress run, which is headless mode. Don't worry about this because something. Started video recording. The video recording is built in, works by default. You actually have to disable it if you don't want a video. So it actually recorded a video. Boom. I can see what's going on. I can store it as an artifact on my CI. This is what happened, right? Not only it did that, it actually saved a screenshot automatically on. We actually fixed the rendering so that you actually see the error. Okay, I kind of sound like it's boring to me because I'm so used to it. I was a happy user of Cypress for a year before I joined the company, so now I've been there for a year or two. So to me, this is normal. This is what every tool should do. But like you said, the developer experience, no, you said it, right? The developer experience is, all the speakers look the same to me, right? The developer experience is our ultimate focus, right? Okay, here's something else. This is what makes Cypress very different from other cool tools like Puppeteer. So npx, I'm gonna open again. So our problem was we were not resetting database state, right? It just kept adding to-dos. I reran, so then it got 4 to-do items and so on. So here's what we can do. Notice how the blue kind of rotates for a while, for 4 seconds, and then it fails. The tool knows that the website is not instant. But there might be time what goes on before your web DOM actually updates, before your data arrives. And it can observe things and move on. So in this case, I can say, okay, you're trying to select these items. Why don't you just try longer? So I'll increase the timeout for this command specifically. So now it's actually, you see how it's spinning, it's waiting for, it's actually rerunning what command. It's saying, I'm trying to select, do you have 2 items? No. I'm trying to select, do you have 2 items? No. Okay, now I'm being a good person. I'm like, I see you struggling, so I'm going to delete a couple items. I'm going to help you, you know, because it's a real app. Okay, 3, 2, boom. Right? See? Now it found 2 items and the assertion passed. You don't have to clap. I know you're impressed. I can see it. I know you mean well. Okay, moving on. So that's the ultimate thing. How you can use Puppeteer and do pretty much a lot of things really reliably. But the Puppeteer doesn't have all these bells and whistles for testing. So Puppeteer or any other tool will give you like a base, right? Like maybe like a engine and wheels and a frame. And you need a fire truck. And we give you a fire truck already. So it has everything. Okay, if you want to learn more, last Friday I had released a course on Cypress. I highly recommend it. It's excellent. It's by a person who used to work at Cypress. And when he worked at Cypress, he did a free course on Cypress. He wrote a React app while doing end-to-end testing for it. So you can watch it for free. Also, we invest a lot of time in our documentation. We give it all away for free because we make money off a dashboard where you can record all the videos, screenshots, and all the rest of the things, all the stats, so you don't have to hunt on UCI what happened. That's how we're going to make money, but you don't have to use it. Now, important things for React. So integration testing, right? Let's say you want to test your component, but you wrote in React. So what would be integration testing? So what do you need? You need a real browser. You want DOM, you want storage, you want the APIs. You want to clean up the state, right? So Cypress always, cleans up the whole iframe, gives you completely new thing between each test. So one test cannot break another one. You want to stub the server, like so we have all the stubbing and marking built in. So what you really need for integration for your individual components, exactly the same thing you need for your end-to-end testing, right? Who wants to party with me? I look like that. Okay, so we wrote a few adapters that are specific to each framework now, right? What I showed before was completely agnostic. I didn't have anything. I just did site type. We only went for the DOM. But here we're actually using framework-specific things, where you can run the test, but instead of loading the full page, you load just the thing. So in this case, in addition to Cypress, you would install Cypress React unit test, and then you would import your component, you would import React, and you would import just a single function from our adapter called mount. And so instead of sci-visit and a URL, you would just say mount that component. And when you use the same API, you have a full GUI, you have all the bells and whistles. It's just instead of a full web app, you're testing a component only. And I wrote this adapters for everything. So I know there are some Angular people here who are hiding. I wrote something for you, and tomorrow at Angular NYC, I'll show the same thing. So just anyway, there is a free video by Josh Justice from Atlanta who did the same thing. He was working on a React app, and he refactored it. He extracted a component while testing it. So think of this as a storybook.js, but with tests. OK. Final thoughts. Instead of me saying Cypress is great, there were a couple of people who were mentioned here before, like Max Steiber, right? With Spectrum uses Cypress exclusively for that test. He raves it. I didn't go drinking with him on Friday, but I met with him on Friday, and we talked about it. He's our biggest fan. Ken Siddharth, obviously, is a huge fan. We don't pay him anything. But my favorite thing that I've seen was this about Cypress. I don't know this person, but he says, I've truly reached peak nerd, just stopped watching Cavs Celtics so I could concentrate on watching a tutorial on Cypress. Yeah. Thank you so much. The slides will be available. And I have T-shirts, and I have a couple of stickers, and I can make you a tattoo if you want.
Cool. So let's do 2 quick questions.
Yes, I accept credit cards. it will show multiple things that matched. And when, for example, if you're trying to click, it will give you an error saying you were trying to click, but you have multiple element matching. I don't know what to do. So it will give you a very intelligent error message. All of error messages are handcrafted, artisanal, like Etsy kind of messages. Organic, yes, of course.
Developer experience is never good enough, right?
No, no.
So is there a way to, with the recordings, can you conditionally set certain error conditions to say, this is when I'd like to see a recording rather than the entire view? Can you say, I'm looking for only maybe failures or errors and I'd like to see that recorded?
Excellent question from a very handsome man. So we are doing release version 3 of Cypress, where we take, instead of recording the whole video, it's going to record a video of each spec file, and then we'll add the timestamp. So the fail test will have a timestamp, so it goes immediately to the beginning of a failed test. So we think about that. Some people actually working and prototyping an idea where, like, you have a whole test that kind of acts as a user. You want to record the test just the website, and you want to use that as a video, as a demo, right, as your documentation. So you can show to people who are actually worried about user stories, like your product owners, right? And you can, instead of saying, when is this feature going to be open, what's the status, you're like, here it is. Like, I'm going to take my towel, I'm going to go to the beach, because it's all working. Which is weird, because I work from co-working space, so why would I have my towel there? I don't know. Yeah. Only imagination kind of stops you from using those videos and doing different things. Anything else?
Yeah, that's it.
Thanks,
so
guys.
much. We're a bit short of time, so the next thing is our one more thing. Hey, come here. The surprise talk by a mysterious speaker.
Is it Santa?
Not quite.
Surprised. Very surprised.
He has long hair.
Was not expecting this.
Like Santa. I am the surprise.
Do you need the microphone for recording?
I don't know. I need a microphone? I did. He didn't.
He didn't need it. Okay. And while he's prepared.
Yep.
That's for a live stream.
T-shirt.
Right? Round of applause.
No. No need to. Who was here the last time? Who was on the last React meetup? So you've seen my lighting talk? All right. So I would like to start with apologize. On my last talk, I showed this picture. I said that my mother was a horse, and this is a picture of me, which was obviously not the truth. So I want to apologize if anyone find it disturbing. This is not me. This is actually my brother. So sorry for not being honest with you guys. All right. Shawn Wang said at 7 p.m. Yeah, don't drink and talk. It's not going to work. So Shawn Wang said earlier today, if you want to learn and build it, that's what I'm going to do. It also said live coding is a bad idea. So I'm going to live coding today, the thing that I want us to build. All right. You're familiar with him, yeah? But let's start with a productivity tip. Just like, let's take 2 minutes. A lot of people ask me, which IDE should I use? There is like a huge war between VS Code and Website. Who used VS Code, by the way? Yeah, that's a problem. All right, so I use WebStorm, all right? I think that's the most mature professional JavaScript editor out there. It's not that expensive like you think it is. It's just like $5 a month, which is not such a big deal. But I will say something nice about VS Code. What is the best way to lose weight? Someone? No, depression. Depression, that's the best way to lose weight. Now, if you want to get into depression, you can use Visual Studio Code. So that's actually a good thing. And if you like the full developer experience, we're talking a lot about user experience, you can try to run it on a Windows machine. All right? So again, if you're trying to lose any weight, please use VS Code. Let's talk about React context. So back to Shawn. All right? Live coding is a bad idea. So I've got here just a simple React app. All right? Who use Redux? Just to know? Great. So let's start with the standard. I'm going to create a store.js file. We keep it simple. We focus on the feature. So I'm going to import React. Actually, I don't really need React. What I want to do, I want to create an init state with just, let's say, my name. Yeah, too much beers. Yeah, that's why it's going to be funny. Now, I'm going to import create store from Redux, and let's export store. For a reducer, no, I just pass an inline function. Let's return the init state. Nothing fancy. All right? The usual stuff. Now, back to my index. If you want to use React Redux, like we all do, you probably use the React Redux adapter. Is there anyone who's using something else for this? Just to make sure? All right. So we've got this wrapper component called provider. We can provide the store. Yep, and I think that's it, unless you're seeing a problem right here. Where? Here it is. Yeah, found it. So we wrap everything with provider. Let's go inside our app. We'll do the usual stuff. I'm going to create a map props, map state to props, which accept the state, and return an object. Name can be state.name. And again, from Redux, React Redux, let's take the connect function and wrap everything with it. Wait. All right. So now, as we all know, we've got our name on the props. So if I didn't miss something, I can do this props name, and I'm expect to see my name. That's fine, all right? Yeah, amazing stuff. Yeah, but I'm a big believer in live coding. So I'm saying even if it's the basic stuff, let's try completely from scratch. Like I said, now nothing was prepared. All right. Let's talk about the context API. But we will talk with code. So I'm going to create, instead of React Redux, I'm going to create my version of React Redux adapter. Let's call it Renear. Straight from React, I'm going to import React, and I'm going to import the create context function. Now I'm going to create context. I'm going to use the create context. And let's split the screen, open up our index.js file, wrap this you can follow, I don't know if you can see it, but you can see the shortcut which I'm using on the bottom of the screen. It's got nothing to do with our demo. So let's start with our provider component. It's supposed to be a simple component. So let's export provider, which will be a simple component. And let's pass props, but I don't care about most of the props. I care about the store, and I care about the children. Make sense? Now I'm going to use the context that I just created to build a component, the CTX provider component. Right here, I'm going to just render the children. And for the provider component, I'm going to pass as a value the store. Make sense? Just a wrapper component. Actually, I could use the same code right here on my index file, but I want to keep it separate. I want to keep it clean. I want to keep it reusable. Let's see if it works. Let's replace with my code from re-near. Let's take my provider. It's not going to work right now because we've got the connect right here, which is going to fail, right? So let's build the connect. Now the connect is a little bit tricky. I mean, it's a strange signature. It's a function. We're calling this function with our map state to props, which is a plain function that returns an object. And then on the second round, we call this function again with our component. And all of this should return a component. And a component is a function by itself. So it's a function that returns a function that returns a function. Amazing. Functional programming. So I've got a function. Here I will have my map state function. All right, makes sense? And then I will return a function that accepts the original component, and then I will return a function which is the actual component. All right? Now, I'm going to use the context to create a consumer. When you create a consumer component, inside of it, you pass a callback function. This callback function allows you to access this value that you provide to your provider, which means I'm just building a higher order function that wrap my component with this CTX consumer component. Make sense? All right. So here I can gain access to the store function. I want to return the original component, but I want to spread the props. I want to take what this function returns, this map props, which returns just a plain object, and spread it on my new component, my old component, my wrapped component. Make sense? The code will look something like this. I'm going to call this function, map state function, which is this function. I need to provide the state. It will return an object, which I'm spreading on my wrapped component. So I need to pass state, store, get state. Let's try to replace this connect with my connect. And if everything worked by the plan, almost, right? We've got everything working. Cool? That's no reason. So, let's go through the code. The context in React was there from the beginning. We just got a nicer API. Actually, it's a kind of design pattern, the provider-consumer. The React Redux library used the context from the beginning. We've got this global store object. We want to pass it to our child components. We use just simple functions. Take a look at this code. Very simple, very straightforward. You can use it for a lot of other things as well. All right? Who learned something new about context today in this session? Like this? Where? Line 6 here? Yeah. You don't. So the question is, here I passed value to provider, but I never used it here. Actually, this value, you can call it XXX if you like. This is the value that you passed. It's a callback function. Yeah, optional. Yeah, you can call it whatever you like. I mean, the value is necessary. The value is part of the API. You pass a value, but then in the callback function as an argument, you get an access to this value. So I don't need to use the same name. The name got no meaning. All right, you can call it XXX. You can call it something less sleazy, if you like. All right, back to our slide. So that was context, just like all the other new features in React. Simple, straightforward, and like Shawn used to say before he passed away in 2017, that you should build it. Instead of just using features, try to mimic it. You just understand the joke. Yeah. My bad English, sorry. And because everything went so smooth and we didn't have any troubles, I've got something special for you. Right? So, how do you identify a Vue developer? You heard about this Vue thing, framework named Vue? So a lot of them are hanging around us. Actually, there might be a Vue developer right here, right now. Now, well, yeah, but we are a very inclusive community. I mean, we accept everyone, so we're fine with it. But I created a cheat sheet for you how you identify a Vue developer. So, asymmetric beard. All right, that's the first sign. Symmetric beard is fine, but if it's asymmetric, you should ask him. If you listen to indie music while he's coding, that's another sign. Right? Wait for him to walk away from his table, listen to the headphone. If it's indie music, something strange, I don't know. All right? If you're using Atom, I mean, come on, use VS Code, I mean, if you really want to. If you use the word progressive too much, I built a progressive web app, which is a progressive pattern of a progressive technique that I learned because Vue is so progressive. All right? So this is how you identify a Vue developer, which is basically a very nice people, but you know, right? Asymmetric beard. That's the first sign. If it's like a really nice beard, she's okay. But if it's asymmetric, you should. The good news that I just find a great resource. This is a map of New York City, and most of them currently in Williamsburg. So if you live here in Manhattan, working in Manhattan, you're pretty much safe, right?
I heard they're in Jersey, actually.
In Jersey, I heard another things of Jersey, but let's keep something for my next talk. This is a bad picture of me. My name is Nir. I work at 500 Tech, and thank you very much. And if you've got some questions, I'll be happy to answer.
One question here, one question there. Anyone have a question here?
No? Yeah. It was so clear. And
they almost raised their hand and then no.
Yeah. The question is, where is Williamsburg?
Is it true that both you and the last speaker are going to be speaking at BuzzJS? Just check.
Yeah. That's true. I'm actually gonna run a full day workshop of NGRX, which is Angular. Because don't tell anyone. Yeah, don't tell anyone. But I'm actually a GD of web technologies in general, but Angular is my thing. But I'm not using Vue, so I'm okay. Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna do a full day of workshop. If you like to join me, if you like to learn something new and listen to bad humor.
Any questions? Asymmetric ponytails. Is that?
It's very symmetric, actually. Any other questions?
Any questions about Vue?
All right, I think we're good.
Okay, cool. Thanks so much.
If you want the code examples, you can't find. I just like code.
Cool. So yeah, first of all, thanks so much for all the people who watched us on YouTube. I think that 20 of the strongest ones are still watching us. I have a couple more announcements. So first of all, we already have almost 1K subscribers on our YouTube channel, and I really want to see the K in the number. So we need 16 more people. Go ahead and hit subscribe. It will warm my heart. Another small answer I have is I think this week or next week there is a React Native workshop organized by Ken Wheeler. You know this guy that represents America. So he's doing a React Native workshop. If you want to get a discount, want to hear more about that, come talk to me and I'll connect you. Thanks so much for Mervin for hosting us. Thanks so much for Rito coming. Thanks so much for all the speakers, for Roman and all these live stream viewers. Hope I see you next time in 2 weeks. Thank you so much. And we have about 15 minutes to get out of the building. So if you want to mail me